measures 2¼ by 2¼ by 6 inches.
Go ahead.
Is that better?
A little bit farther away from you.
Move the speaker further away from me, he said. There you go. And it's approximately 6 inches long. So I'm not going to round this piece. I already did this one. And what we're going to do is we're going to turn this true down to 55 millimeters. I've taken the calipers and I've already run me some plate in where it's 55 millimeters. So I'm going to round this out first, and then I'll tell you, then we'll go with the next step. And that's fixing the piece we're going to cut the head from. That's close enough for what we're doing.
Demo's over.
All right, I've made a cheat sheet. What we're going to do is we're going to wind up turning this owl head down to 45 millimeters. So what I calculated out, I'll give you this information right now. I've got most of this information off of Axminster. It's a video. You can go on their channel and look up Wood Owl Project. And they'll go through a lot of this stuff. That's where the 45 millimeter come from. So what I'm going to do is I need to have the end turned to 45 millimeter, this piece like this. But I'm also going to have to turn the tenon down here and here. So I found that when I designed this, to come 2 5/8 from this end to here. And I've got that on here. So I don't have to measure it out. This is set at 45 millimeters. So I'm going to use my cheat sheet, and I got a mark here and here. This is 45 millimeters, and then that's the center line. And I'm going to mark all 3 of these lines on here right now. Since we're doing a 45 millimeter ball, that's why this is 45 millimeters here. And you go on that program, and to find out how to turn this on the mathematically, you have to go to a Ronald Kane. He's another YouTube guy, and that's where I come up with this to turn the head, the spear. I like his idea better than the Axminster because he says, well, when you turned a lot of spears, he just turned the spear. It didn't work for me. So what I'm going to do next is I'm going to turn this down to here, the tenon. And these tenons are 19 millimeter. I worked the math out, and what we're doing is we're creating, I think, it's either hexagon or octagon shape, and then we're going to take the corners off and create a spear. I don't remember which one it was. So I'm going to take this down to the, okay. I'm going to add a couple more lines to this. In that Ronald Kane's explanation, I'll eventually write these instructions down and pass it out later. I just didn't get that done. So when he figures it out, he figures out 29% of the diameter, and then that's what he marks into here off the corners to these 2 marks. And that is basically what we turn from here to the center here is 29% of the diameter. So I did the math, and that's what told me how the diameter of this tenon. I've got it on my cheat sheet. So now we're to this portion right here. Everybody, anybody got a question? What? Can you see that? This is our next step. We're going to cut a straight line from this line right here down to that tenon. We're going to make a flat side, just like that is right there. We're going to do it on both sides. Then we're going to mark the center of that. And then we're going to round in between them to create that next step. I also have marked on my cheat sheet the halfway point. Because I made a whole bunch of these and I didn't want to keep putting dimensions on. So this is half the distance right there. And that's, I believe 9 millimeters is what it came out to. Now, when I'm to this point, what I'm going to do next is I'm going to take these tenons down, because that's 45 millimeter right here, and I'm going to shrink these tenons a little bit. Then I'm going to round these corners and start forming the spear, which will be the head. So I'm going to take it to this point next. This is how we're going to turn the rest of the spear. I drill, you'll have to come up with just a cuff center, and I'm going to hold that ball between here as we finish rounding that. Now I made these, and this here is tapped to, I forget what this is, I have tap at the house. And then this is made that just fit the chuck. Can you see that with the camera? We don't have that perfectly around yet. What I'm going to do now is I'm going to turn this a little bit. Just a little bit more. When it gets this far, now we're going to go to the sandpaper, 150. The key I found when I first did these, I was taking this, and I was turning these balls down, I was trying to turn it perfect in here. And I learned that you leave this just a hair longer when you cut it off, and it turns out and your ball will be closer to 45 millimeter. If this is just a hair longer over here when you're cutting it off.
So you want to get, once you cut those tendons off,
Then you turn it once here,
you
you
put
round
it
it.
between there, you only reposition it one time?
I did it 3 times,
You did it
or 3 or 4 times.
Okay.
Because you're only taking, because you take this off, and sometimes this will hold it a little funny, and then it won't get it all. You start getting it down, you'll start seeing them lines disappear, what you're after. That's why you want those lines left, because that'll get you real close to 45 millimeters, which is crucial later when we put it in the chuck we made. And you know that, I had to make 3 of them because all my spears turned out different sizes until I figured it out. So I turned this twice, 3 times with the 150. Now I'm going to step down to 220. By the way, this wood, if I haven't mentioned, is holly, but we're turning this out. Once you get it fairly smooth with the sandpaper before, it don't take a lot for the rest of the rotation. See, I'm putting an indentation. And I sand it down to 320. The next thing we're going to do when we're turning this spear, if you see the grain patterns running across the top of the head, can you see that showing up?
Yes.
So we're going to pick this grain pattern, because I got to mark this. I got to mark the center line across here, and then I'm going to mark where these eyes are turned. I'm going to do that with this here. So we're going to take, I'm going to set that grain pattern now. Just like that. Call that center. If you can see this, you can see the ring right here. What we're going to do now is we're going to put 2 marks on here, and we want them 90 degrees apart. That's going to give us these centers where these eyes are going to be. So the easiest way to do that is put this ball in here, and I've got this tool rest right in here on the chuck, right here where they come together. And then I'm going to move it, and I'm going to put it right here. And that's going to give us 90 degrees apart. I'm just going to kind of come over like this. So I'm going to rotate this ball. I'm holding it close enough because I've done this. That's my first mark. Now we'll take that off. That's pretty good. Can you see that in the camera? This is going to be a center mark. Too many marks. And that pretty well hits in this grain pattern. And that gives you the effect of the eye and the way the grain goes over. It's something you have to look for in order to get what you want, get it right. So now we're done with this rig here. We just, all we need to do is turn around, make the center line, and then that's where our eye's going to be, and that's where our eye's going to be turned in. We're going to turn these flaps and turn these eyes. If you watch the Axminster's show on Project Owl, he's going to make one of these chucks. His chuck's different than mine, so his is a little different. I had to adapt mine to what I had. I don't know what everybody else has, but you have to adapt to your equipment. If you're just doing one owl, Ronald Kane shows he does a little slightly different owl, but what he does is he turns the jam chuck and pops that owl head in there and turns that in there. This works for me. I was doing a whole bunch of them. I've already turned, this is another owl I was doing here. And I turned this eye earlier. I'm going to finish this eye right here. And then I'm going to rotate this and I'm going to show you how to cut the other eye. And I'll explain how this eye's cut. What? This here, it's one that fits this infinity chuck I bought. It's just,
How's the big nail in there? This is no chuck. No wood.
it's a Nova. It's a Nova chuck. And this is the set of jaws I built for this particular. I happen to have these deep jaws in it. And they work the best because you need that clamping power right around as close to this jaw edge as you can. So this holds this because I've had these eyes turn on me when I've turned them before. So when you're making these, if you make one of these, this inside, in fact, what I'll do is I'll turn this, I'll send one of these around, and you can look at how it's made. Okay, so this eye is done. And this is Osage oranges, the eyeball's made out of, because it gives a nice yellow contrast with the owl. Of course, this is mulberry. I use walnut for the eyes and head. And I have, of course, then I did the walnut, and it's got a Osage orange eye in it, so they show up. Axminster, actually, the gentleman on here that does these owls, he actually goes a little step further, and he puts a little bitty pupil in that. I'm not doing that. They're good enough. So now what I'll do is take and, well, I've got this in here.
You have to have those real deep jaws.
That's what I've used, because that ball's got cylinders so far. You might get by, I don't know. You have to look at you'll have to figure out what you can adapt yours with. Because when you get the ball in there, if you look, this has got gaps between all four. This is a 4-jaw chuck. I like the 3 ones better, but this was the first one I made, and it fits this head the right size. Loosen that up. I don't know if you can see it on the camera, but here's the other mark that I made, just like I did on that. That's what we're going to line up with the center here. We're going to attempt it. Just put a center punch mark in there with the center tip of this. So this is going to be the center of the eyeball again. On the Axminster, he tells you about what he uses on this. What we're going to do is we're going to scribe a circle around here. I've got this set to do 18 millimeters. That's what this is. I think he set his on about 20, and it overlaps more. And I experimented with it because you get the eye, which overlaps and gives you a little bit of the bridge nose here. Or if you want a little different look, you shrink this down a little bit more, and then you get where it doesn't come over and it gives you a different nose on the owl head. I happen to like this better. That's what we're doing tonight. So 18 millimeters is what I come up with. When you turn in these things, it changed because some of the spears I turned were a little smaller, so I got a little more overlap. So I have changed this depending on how small my spear got. So what we're going to do is we're just going to scribe this mark around here and add overlap, just what I figured. Now what we're going to do, we're going to come up here and I'm going to cut this flat across down to that scribe line. And that gives us the eyeball socket. Another thing I found in turning these eyes, start in the center, turn outward. I've had more of these turn in here, turn it backward into the eye. So it works better than my cuts. It's a small tool.
That spindle gouge.
Fingernail, detail down. We're not worried about being real smooth. We've got a lot of work to do too. But we want to make a cup center here because we're fixing to drill this out. I'm going to drill this out to a 3/8 hole, and that's a 3/8 plug cutter that makes these eyes. That's the type of plug cutter I use. To make the eyes. And I'll cut a 3/8 plug. So I cut them so deep into the wood, and I take my bandsaw and saw these off. That's how I make the little eye go in here. So the next step is to actually make the hole for the eye to go into. 3/8 plug hole, 3/8 phosphor bit. Now, how deep to drill this? Okay. The guy in Axminster says, oh, just about here. So that's what I do, just about there. There's no dimension on it. It's something I developed. It's about 2/3 of that bit. And I can't tell you what the bit is because I never did measure it. And it works for me too, just like it worked for him. It looks close to about 3/8 in depth. When you drill in, I found with my lathe and everything, once it's in, shut it off and then remove the drill bit. When I pull the drill bit out and still spin it, it takes a little extra wood off, and then my plug fits in there loose. I have to use that thick glue. Try to avoid that. Right there. That's what the guy did on the demo. I said, it works. Now what we're going to do going to create this ring here. In order to do that, I need to cut a recess down in here a little bit because it's all recessed in, and this sets at a little bit of an angle. Once again, I have this tool here, and I believe you call it a pedan or whatever, but this here winds up being the exact width of what I cut between that eyeball and that ring. So that's what we're going to do next. You'll have to use whatever you have at hand to figure this out. That hole I drew, I'm going to go down about half the distance with this. And just the width of that tool. That's what I just did. Now I'm going to come over the same width. This is where the ring is going to be, but it's not going to stick up that high, so I'm going to take a little more of the wood off right there. Then this is going to be tipped at an angle, so I'm going to take a little of that off. That's good enough for now. Fortunately, in order to do this next step, we need V-turn. This is the D-way V-turn. All I can tell you is it's small. I don't know what size it is. It just works. I'll have to go on this twice with this one. I'm going to use my skew again as a scraper. And I'm going to clean up this right here and get that a little more slow. It's still a little bit rough. That's better. In the ear, I try to slope this piece from the eye back into the ring a little. It don't always happen. I think it gives it a better effect. I got a little bit of a line I can see here. I'm going to touch this up just a hair. Any questions so far? Are you dazed and confused yet? Now that plug is a lot bigger than what's necessary, but that's just how it works out. There won't be a lot of it, it's not real deep, because of the way I had to work the eyes, sometimes I get them, but they're deep enough to hold, and that's what we're after. So I glue these in. Like I said, I was going to use CA glue, and I attempted that. Attempted it at the house before I come up here, and my glue was setting up before I get the eyeball set. So we're not doing that. I turned an eye, so you know how they're turned. I'm going to show you how I glue these in. And all this gluing is nothing big. Put a little bit of glue on this here, of course. Stick it in here. And when it comes out, we're not worried about it. It'll turn off. What you want to do, and I learned this the hard way, is when you want to hold this in there. But you want a piece of wood between it and that little center thing, because that'll split that eyeball. And just leave it for 4 or 5 minutes. It'll set up enough. And then I got another lathe, I can go work on it. A lot of people don't have that, but that's what I do. I'll have one glue, and what I usually do is I go and I have another lathe set up, and I'm ahead of myself, so I turn the body for the head I already done. We'll just give this a few minutes. We'll give about a minute or two, and I'll take it out. We'll set up. I'll take this off of here. I'll put the other chuck on, we'll turn the body. Body won't take long. Let's see. I will need that other head back. So I'll fit the body to the head. I'm not taking this out of here because I don't want to try to realign that. I'm going to take it and let it dry, and I'm going to turn it to halves.
Smart move.
Huh?
Smart move.
This is a small chuck, a Barracuda that I got, and when I'm preparing these blanks, like I said, I drill a 1-inch hole in the bottom. If you don't have a small chuck, you have a Nova chuck, you will probably have a set of pin jaws like this. And a 1-inch hole is not quite big enough. You've got to kind of jam these in here. So you need to have a bit that does like a 1/8, 1/16 or something. Then I think it'll fit in. So you can modify what you got to work. Once again, this is what I got. The whole purpose of this is to hold this when we turn this hollow here for the spear to sit on. Otherwise, there's no way of holding it unless you have your blank where it's big enough to fit inside of whatever to hold on that. You know, if it's a Nova chuck, and you use this, that's almost 1 inch and 3/4. I think the clamp around the 10 or close to 2 inches. So then you'd have to make, well, it started out 2 1/4, so you do that, but you just have to remember on the bottom side of your body side, you have to leave enough to clamp that in that clamp. I have different stuff, so I process differently so I can move along faster. I've done more. To make the owls a different size, higher or taller, it depends on how you can part this off and make your body smaller, and then make sure that way your owls will be different heights. Just show better that way. If you look at this body, you can see how I shaped the shoulder on it. And this one's a little more rounded, it looks a little different. So you can get a little different bird look depending on how you shape the body. Try and give her some tear out. Once again, we're going to sandpaper now. That's good enough for demo. Now we're going to fit the head to the, where's that one I marked with the eyes earlier? Remove that because it hurts when you poke your elbows. Pull back a light press again because we're sticking out here quite a bit. Using this little detail gouge again. Not deep enough. I have a scraper, 2 scrapers I used and I did not bring them. But this will work. That's fitting in there pretty good. Now you have to determine if this is wide enough and the neck looks good for the owl you're doing. And you can see how far that sets down. Gives it a pretty, mostly there's not a lot of neck. That's what you want. I've done a few where I didn't have that deep enough. I'm going to widen that a little bit so it sits down on the shoulder a little bit more. I like that. It wasn't much, but it's enough to set down in there a little bit more. Good, that'll work. Any questions? That's how you turn the body. Now, usually I got these, I don't sand this because the head sits on it. I've already got this sanded usually. I use the TV grid on it. Let me get rid of that mark there. We'll shine it up. Usually I use a paper towel. I got them. Rags are no-nos on the legs. Don't tell anybody. It's not completed without the eyeballs, but any questions? Huh?